Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. So, today is going to be the last class on our series Moshiach Decoded. The Moshiach Decoded series had three semesters. The first one was Moshiach the person. It had 6 classes. The second one was Moshiach the era. It had 6 classes. And the last one was Moshiach the process. And I think it had about 12 classes, something like that. I have to count. It was initially supposed to be 6 classes, but it developed, the process developed. This morning's class is the last class of in this last semester. The last class was titled Now What? And I was going to give only one class on that, and then I saw there was so much to talk about. And as I mentioned in the earlier classes, and first of all, I want to thank the Werdiger family for sponsoring the Werdiger family from Melbourne, Shlomo Werdiger from Melbourne, Australia, for his kind dedication. May this bring him a lot of bracha and his family. The question is, after we've seen the process of Moshiach and how we're living actually in Moshiach times, the question is, what is our part that we play? Not to be just bystanders, but to take an active role, the call for action. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave us, after he spoke that very intense talk, how he's done everything he can already, but now he's giving it over to us, to every man, woman, and child, to be responsible for the redemption. I mentioned there were 4 things the Rebbe spoke about that could be done and should be done. It was a series of talks that he gave from the end of the month of Nisan in 1991 until the month of March in 1992, when the Rebbe had a stroke. So during that period of time, which was about 10 months, he revealed incredible, unbelievable insight into the redemption. And he gave, and we spoke, there were primarily four main messages that were given during that time. And today I'm going to focus on the last message that the Rebbe spoke about. The first 3 briefly is, in the first few weeks the Rebbe was talking about every single person taking responsibility for the redemption, which means that we all have to know that it's upon us to make Moshiach happen, and therefore we have to give it all we've got. That was the first message. Second message is that we not only, and in order to do that, remember, in order to do that, we should study about Moshiach. The more we learn about it, the more determined we will become to bring Moshiach. And on a deeper level, in order to bring Moshiach, you have to be Moshiach. And as we discussed earlier, only Moshiach can bring Moshiach, can bring the Geula. And how can every little yukel be Moshiach? And the answer is, it doesn't make a difference who we are. We all have a spark of Moshiach inside of us. So by learning about Moshiach, we're able to uncover that spark. And as a result of that, we can be Moshiach in our own little way, and we can do our part in bringing the Geula. The spark of Moshiach inside of you is your essence. So when you discover that, then your determination to bring Moshiach becomes essential to your life. As a matter of fact, it takes over your life. So if you're not yet obsessed with bringing Moshiach and doing everything you can, son, you haven't uncovered that spark. But the method of uncovering it is through Torah, because Torah reveals. So Torah can reveal the part of ourselves that is unknown even to ourselves. That's the first message. Second message is that being that we're already living in the early days of the transition from Galus to Geula, so we're already living in the early days of the redemption, today's days we can actually start living in the time of redemption. Not only to be determined to bring redemption, but we can actually live in the period of the redemption already. And we discussed that. How do you do that? Same method. You learn about Moshiach, so you appreciate what Moshiach's world is going to be like, then you can live already in the world of Moshiach. Or deeper, by learning about Moshiach, you uncover the Moshiach inside of you, and once you uncover the spark of Moshiach that's inside of you and inside of me and all of us, then automatically the Moshiach inside of us lives in a Moshiach reality. So actually we relate to each other with Moshiach attitude, with Moshiach in a Moshiach consciousness and a Moshiach awareness, because we are that spark of Moshiach. So of course we're living and we see the whole world around us in Moshiach, as a Moshiach. Already the Geula had already happened to a certain degree, and we can start living it. And the more we live it, the more real it starts becoming, more and more and more in the world. The third instruction, which came early winter of 1992, was that we have to go make Kiddush Levana, which really meant, as we discussed earlier, and later he defines it a little more, we have to actually go greet Moshiach Tzidkenu. And we discussed what that means. Kabbalah's Pnei Moshiach Tzidkenu, which means we have the ability. Moshiach is already present in the world. He's already very, very much, not only is he present, but he already revealed himself. And our avoda is to accept him, know him, connect to him. And that means that, and how do we do that? How do we connect to Moshiach? Again, the same thing. Through our Moshiach connects to to the larger Moshiach. The detail of Moshiach, the spark of Moshiach cleaves and bonds to the greater persona as Moshiach Tzidkenu. So you can listen to the earlier classes where we discussed what this means, and how do you come to that state? Same idea. You learn about Moshiach. So remember, the instructions is always the same thing. The method is always the same: studying and learning, immersing oneself in the knowledge of Moshiach. And that will bring, number one, determination to bring Moshiach. Number two, living in Moshiach's world. Number three, connecting personally to Moshiach Tzidkenu himself as a human being who is present in this world already, that we need to connect to him. Now we go to the last and final instruction which came those years. And that began in Parshas Vayetze, Vayishlach, and the first time we heard those words, very, very, very stunning words, was in Parshas Vayetze, which is, I would say, probably November of 1991. The Rebbe said some really, really powerful words. And then he continued Parshas Vayishlach, and then he mentions it also on Yutes Kislev, and then he mentions it also on Parshas Vayigash, and then he mentions it also in Parshas Bo. So throughout the early winter, all the way into the beginning of January, the Rebbe is using new words that we haven't heard before. And what are those words? The Rebbe says we have to open up our eyes and see not only that Moshiach is here already, but that the Geula is here already. That the redemption is actually here already in the world. Now we spoke earlier in earlier classes that it's possible that Moshiach should arrive, but during the time of exile, we're still in Galus, but we don't have yet the Geula. That itself was shocking for many people to hear. Shocking. And I proved to you from this Fasemes and other proofs, that Bias Moshiach l'chud v'Geula l'chud. These are two separate things. Moshiach can come, like Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Jewish people during the exile, but the Geula happens a little while later. The Geula didn't happen yet. But here the Rebbe is saying something deeper, that not only did Moshiach arrive, but the Geula is actually a reality already. However, it will take a certain opening of our eyes to actually start realizing it in our material physical realm. Or as the Rebbe says in the last week, which I'll share with you soon in Parshas Bo, that the spiritual eyes of the Jewish people see already the redemption. Now it's only necessary that the physical, corporal eyes should see the redemption. So the Rebbe is saying to us that our neshamas see the Geula already. question is, can you connect your spiritual vision to your physical vision? Moshiach is not meant to remain in the realm of neshama. Moshiach has to impact a concrete reality. And that's what we're waiting for, Moshiach to become real and concrete and down, earthy in the physical material realm. So that's the last lesson. So now what we're going to do is, we're actually going to open up the sikha, the talk, and I'm going to share with you the actual words that the Rebbe said, and then we're going to try to decode them. The Rebbe is speaking, and he's actually being very explicit, but still it needs a little decoding. So we're going to try to decipher the last instruction that the Rebbe said regarding Moshiach. And that is, all that is necessary today is to open up our eyes, and we can see the Geula. So now let's take a look. Now, what's amazing is that some people think that the Rebbe was hoping and wishing and thinking and trying and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of people waking up today, 30 years later, and realizing that they might have made a very big mistake. Because when we're looking around in the world and we're seeing certain things happening right now, anybody that doesn't have literally blinders on their eyes can see the Geula unfolding. And we actually see it's not a new Geula, it's the same Geula that the Rebbe was talking about 30 years ago. It's just that a Rebbe, a prophet, sees what other people don't see, and he sees much, much deeper. And here is where the Amunah lies. Do we believe that every word of the prophet is true, or do we believe almost true? And I think a time has come that we can all catch up. We can all re-inspire our faith that we really do have, that every word of the prophet is true. And therefore we can go back to the sikhs today and say, wow, that's really what the Rebbe was talking about and is talking about. And it's very, very real. And we don't have to, chas v'shalom, redefine Chabad or redefine our work, because the Rebbe is emes. And there's not one half of a letter that he spoke from his mouth that is not going to be fulfilled to the very last detail. Because why? A prophet is Shechina medaberes matoich karaynai. The Shechina speaks through his mouth. What God says is. And a tzaddik, and the Rebbe himself said that he's speaking prophecy, and we all know that this is the whole idea of tzaddikim, especially rabbeim, that they, the leaders of the Jewish people, that through them comes the word of Hashem. Sometimes we have questions, and that's part of the nisayon, part of the test. But here, for example, let's read. I'm starting with the first one, where the Rebbe is the first time the Rebbe mentioned this idea. He says like this. Everything that was mentioned before, he was talking a lot about the Mittler Rebbe. This was a sikha on Tes Kislev, which is the day that in Chabad we commemorate the yard site of the Mittler Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, Reb Dov Ber. So the Rebbe says in Perik, in Sif Yud Ches, everything we said earlier is applicable to all the generations of the Jewish people. How much more so in our generation and our times, which according to the Simanim of Chazal, I'm not going to read it all in Yiddish and interpret because it's just going to take up time, so I'm going to read it just in English, which according to all the signs of the sages, in Masechta Sanhedrin, in the Midrashim, or in many places, in Midrash, in Gemara, we are already holding literally by the Geula. We're holding by the Geula Mamish, strong words. We're holding by the Geula Mamish. And like we spoke many times recently, that after the increased, unbelievable amount of work, Maseinu v'avodeseinu, our work, our toil, our efforts, throughout all the generations, especially after the work of our mentors and teachers, the Chassidic masters, beginning with the fathers of Chassidus, who were celebrating on Yotes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi's release from imprisonment, his son, Reb Dov Ber's release from imprisonment on Yud Kislev, his yard site, and so forth. Their birthdays, their yard sites, and the like. And since then, we've already passed through many generations. And we've even had the avoda, the service, the Rebbe says, of his own father-in-law. And the Rebbe doesn't mention himself, but obviously we can put that in. as part of what was needed to complete and prepare for Moshiach. We have 40 years at that time of unbelievable leadership and incredible advancement in Judaism and bringing Yidden to do tshuva and spreading Yiddishkeit across the world and everything, right? So what happens? We've already concluded all the birurim, which means we finished already rectifying everything that needs to be rectified. Including also, this is very important for actually these days right now, here is where we're seeing what the Rebbe spoke 30 years ago, which again at that time was like, what is he saying? It includes also the last thing that we needed to rectify. The last being to be rectified is Esav. Der Biruf and Esav who Edom. Esav who is Edom needs to be fixed. Umakolshkin, he says, how much more so? That even in the days of Yaakov thought and believed that Esav was fixed already. So if 4,000 years ago Yaakov couldn't have made such a mistake. So if Yaakov believed that Esav was fixed, he had already a tremendous improvement. After Yaakov worked in Lavan's house for 20 years, Esav was quite a lot repaired, but he wasn't completed. But now after 4,000 years of goodness and holiness, so forth, Esav has already been repaired. And after so much work since then, Esav is already completely fixed. Like we see, he says, in the Hanahaga, in the conduct in these days, while we're still in the exile of Edom. Now, if you remember, the Jewish people are in the exile of the Christian West for almost 2,000 years. Brutal persecution. But it's just recently that all that stopped. There are individual pockets of anti-Semites, yes, that exist. But I'm talking about the general attitude of Edom changed. In Russia, there was tremendous persecution until 1990, when suddenly the persecution against Jews stopped as an official policy of the government, completely stopped. Not only did they stop persecuting Jews, but they actually assisted in Jews leaving Russia and going to Eretz Yisroel, and assisting Jewish organizations teach Torah and do mitzvahs, which is totally antithetical to what Russia and the czarist regimes, forget about communism for 70 years, but the czars that have always been causing so much suffering for the Jewish people, that they should assist in Jewish observance is tremendous. But interesting, right over here, the Rebbe is not talking about Russia. He's talking the other offshoot of Edom, and that is the United States of America. The Rebbe says, from the Umay Sa'olam that come from Esav, B'derech Malchus Shel Chesed, in a manner of a kingship of kindness, a kingdom of kindness, which was the term that the Rebbe always used for America, a kingdom of kindness. And this conduct that the United States has been showing to the Jewish people is now being spread in other countries as well. And like we see recently, there's the change that has happened. So it's understood that now we're already holding in a situation. Now let's understand something. Here the Rebbe makes a very interesting remark. Once we see that the Gentile is refined, Esav, who is the quintessential Gentile, if we can say, the leader of the nations. Once you see that Esav is refined, that means that our bodies are refined. Because Yaakov and Esav represent body and soul. Esav is Gashmi, physical. That's where we know that Yaakov and Esav, when they had the reason why there was such a turmoil in Rebekah and Rivka's womb was because they were fighting. Yaakov was going to have the world to come, and Esav was going to have this world. Esav is a material person, Yaakov is a spiritual person. Purifying Esav means purifying our body. So the Rebbe says it must be that this is an indication that the physical body today is ready to receive all the revelations of Moshiach. All the Torah and mitzvahs that we've spilled, that we've generated, it's all to fix the body, to fix the material. The Rebbe says we've done that. And even the physical of the world is already completely nizbarer v'nizdachich. It's completely purified. In is akeli, and that the world, the physical world, is already a container and a vessel, ready to receive all the lights and all spirituality, including and primarily, when we're saying the physical is a keli for ruchnius, What do we mean primarily? Which kind of ruchnius? Oiroi shel Moshiach, the light of Moshiach, which we know is the infinite lights. It's the revelation of Hashem that's so high. That is ready to be received not in our souls, but in our bodies. Oira geula amitis v'shlem. So far, so much, the Rebbe says, that our bodies are ready to receive the revelation of pshitus ha'atzmos, which means the essence, the simplicity of the essence of God. That our bodies are ready to hold and receive the revelation of the essence of Hashem, which is emanate, which is of Hashem Himself, which reveals itself through the essence of Moshiach Tzidkenu. And the essence of God reveals Himself through the essence of the neshama of Moshiach Tzidkenu, which, as we discussed we didn't talk about it, but the Rebbe discussed it in earlier sichos, that the real meaning of Moshiach is not. We once had a shir in part of this class, is that there are 5 levels to the neshama: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida, 5 levels of soul. And we discussed then that Moshiach is the highest level of soul. Moshiach is yechida. Yechida is like totally a level of neshama that's totally one with God. But the Rebbe explains in the sichos before this, in the talks before this, that the true essence of Moshiach is even deeper than yechida. Because Yechida is still a name of the neshama. It's not the essential divinity of the soul. It's already a translation. It's a name. A name is already the way something is called, the way something is translated as opposed to the essence. Moshiach is really the essence of the neshama that is one with the essence of God. That's Moshiach Tzidkenu. And he's the super soul that represents that essence. And therefore, Mashiach uncovers in every Jew not only the yechida of a Jew, but Mashiach uncovers in every Jew and exposes the essence of the Yid himself, etzem haneshama, the essence of the soul that's higher than everything. So again, and the Rebbe says now, that our bodies, here's the thing, this is not a mystical, abstract thing that's embedded somewhere in our soul. We need to know that in 1991, already, close to 30 years ago, we've reached the point that all the Torah and mitzvahs that we've done throughout close to 3.5 millennia of observance of Torah and mitzvahs has purified the physical material world so much, including our bodies, as can be derived from the changes we are seeing in the nations in the world, that they are part of the material realm. The fact that the nations in the world are behaving so different than they were when they were hostile to Kedusha and to holiness, and now they're behaving so differently. This is a sign of the purification of the world, including our bodies, that our bodies are so conditioned already for the Geula, for Moshiach, that our bodies are ready to receive the revelation of the essence of God, which will shine to us through the essence of Mashiach Tzidkenu into the essence of every single Jew. And that's revealing in the body. So now we get to the line that is novel. I mean, this is also a novelty, but this is the main point over here. The Rebbe says the only thing that didn't happen yet in the einzigste Sach was felt, the only thing that's still lacking, that we don't have, is as a Yid soll auföffnen seine Augen kedeboy, that a Jew should open up his eyes the way he should. Because all that we need now is just a cognition, an awareness. That's what we need. In other words, it's here already. All we need is to us to become cognizant and aware to the point that we see it. That Erzain, the Yid will see, the Jew will see, the Alta Shengeretze de Geula. Everything is ready for the redemption. We have already the set table, the Shulchan Aruch. We have the set table. Because we know that one of the things that the sages tell us are going to happen when Mashiach comes, it'll be a great feast celebrating the redemption. And who's going to be at that feast? Hashem is going to be at that feast. Moshiach Tzidkenu is going to be at that feast. All of our fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, right? Everybody's going to be at that feast. And what's going to be served at that feast? the great big fish called the Leviathan, the Shoyer Habor, that great ox, and Yayin Amishumar, aged wine that's here from the 6 days of creation. Now, obviously this has much deeper spiritual meaning than just fish and meat and wine. But it doesn't mean that it's not fish and meat and wine. Because once the material and the spiritual are joined together, who cares if those spiritual, powerful lights are also presented to us in the material, physical world? Yes, fish, meat, and wine in the days of Moshiach, especially at this meal, is completely synchronized with the spiritual meaning of the fish, meat, and wine, which is the greatest and highest godly revelation. In any case, the Rebbe is saying that we are now in a situation that we can, if we would open our eyes, we would see that the table is set already. We have already the table. We have already the Shoyer Haboyer. We have already the Leviathan. We have already the wine, aged wine. And that we are sitting already by the table, in the words of the Rebbe, in Yidden sitzen beim Tisch. We're already sitting by the table, Shulchan Avim, the table of their fathers. Who is that? Their father is the King of all kings, God. We are already sitting with Moshiach Tzidkeinu, mit Moshiach Tzidkeinu. We're sitting. And who does the Rebbe mean when he says we're sitting with Moshiach Tzidkeinu? The fellow with the long robe and the sandals, with the turban, that we have to kind of see him somewhere. He's called Baba something. The Rebbe says no. Via steht in Svarim, it says in Svarim, that in every generation, he spells it out, that it says in every generation, is Echad Mizera Yehuda, there is someone from the descendants of Yehuda who is worthy to be Mashiach. And in Ubedareinu, and in our generation, Nasi Dareinu Kvoit Kedushas Marichami Admar, my father-in-law, which again, the Rebbe is always referring to himself as his father-in-law because he doesn't see his Nesios as his independent thing. In Nochar Boim Shana, and after the 40 years of the passing of the previous Rebbe, he says, we have already more than that. So you'll say, okay, but in order to be able to see all of this, that we're sitting with Moshiach Tzidkeinu, in order for us to see that we are sitting with Moshiach Tzidkeinu and the Eibishter, with God, and we have the Shoyer Habor, and we have the Leviathan, and we have the Yayin Amishumar, in order for us to see all of that, we need eyes. Maybe we just don't have those eyes. We need different kind of eyes. Obviously, our eyes are not seeing it. So we need different eyes. So the Rebbe says, guess what? Since we passed 40 years already, Moshe Rabbeinu said that after 40 years, the Eibishter has given you eyes to see. So the Rebbe says, you have already the heart to know, you have already the eyes to see, and you even have the ears to hear. Meaning the Rebbe says, after 40 years that I'm teaching you, I've given you already the eyes and taught you how to look. I've given you already the ears and taught you how to hear Mashiach. I've given you 40 volumes of Likutei Sichos. I've given you thousands of Meimarim. I've given you hundreds of letters. I've given you so much hours and hours. I've given you everything it needs for you to perceive the Messianic truth, Mashiach's light. Oh, so you have the eyes, you have the ears, you have the heart. So we have everything already in the world present. We have the eyes, the ears, and the heart. It's there. But one thing that Rebbe says, I can't do. It's there, darf nor zayin. Now the only thing that's necessary, ka'amur, that if you have the eyes, open those eyes. Oif efenin. You have to open up the leiv ladas, open your heart to know. And oif efen in the anayim lirois, open the eyes that I have given you already. In oif efen in the aznayim lishmaya, open up the ears to hear. And open up all your 365 blood vessels. And everything else, the Ramach Evarim, 248 limbs and 365 blood vessels, to the reality of the redemption. In addition to learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, which, of course, that's what we've been doing for thousands of years. You should utilize your eyes, your ears, your 613 limbs to learn Pnimiyas HaTorah, to learn Chasidus, because without learning Chasidus, we don't have the eyes to see Geula. Because Geula is related is taught to us through the channels of Pnimius HaTorah, the esoteric teachings of Torah. That's how we perceive the divinity of the redemption, like it's been revealed through Chassidus, the Rebbe says, and fulfilling the teachings and the directives of the Rabbeim, including, how do you open your eyes? Including learn about Moshiach. And that's going to open up your heart and your eyes. Then you'll see in Gashmias HaOlam, we'll see it in the physical world, the Geula HaMitis Vashleima B'Poel Mamish. Then we will actually see the Geula in the literal sense. And we will learn Tairasei Shel Moshiach in a manner of vision. All of this is here already. Medarfnar Effen and the Eugen Vetmenazen. It's all here. We just open our eyes in order to see it. So this is something shocking, which was very new that the Rebbe said. He wasn't saying that we're close, it's almost happening, we need to bring it. He says it's here already. Open your eyes in order to see it. The same thing he says in Parshas Vayishlach. A week later, no one should think, maybe, I don't know, the Rebbe had something that happened that Shabbos, that whatever, but it went away, it's not real, it's not. No, the Rebbe repeats it again the next Shabbos. Parshas Vayishlach. By the way, the next Shabbos, the Rebbe is talking unbelievable words about Beis Yaakov, Beis Yosef, that have to do with purifying Esav and also purifying France, and which has to do something with what happened in France. It's interesting this year. On the Rebbe's birthday, the Rebbe says that talks about fire and the like. That is the light of Moshiach that turns the world of Esav into straw. And what do we mean is we mean only chas v'sholom, the negativity of Esav, not the good of Esav. As we said, Esav is rectified, but there are certain negative elements of Esav that are still around. Like you see the guy who went in and shot up the shul. This is a negative element of Esav that has to be destroyed. And the Rebbe says that we have already the fires of Yaakov. The fire Yaakov, he says, is Chassidus, is the Alter Rebbe, and Yosef is the previous Rebbe. And the fires of there go and take care and transform and have an impact in France, primarily to spread Yiddishkeit, holiness, and God and the Jewish observance in France and the like, but also to turn Esav into straw, which happened on the Rebbe's birthday with the sudden fire that happened in Notre Dame, which is really interesting, which we know that particular church symbolizes one of its main tenets and one of its main thing is the superiority of Christianity over Judaism, and that the Christianity took the place of the chosen people instead of the Jewish people. And that's obviously something that that myth needs to be busted before Mashiach comes. So a fire that broke out on the day of the Rebbe's birthday, and when the Rebbe speaks about, and Newsweek, and I'm not saying this on my own, this is not me making interpretations. Newsweek itself pointed out the astounding thing that the same time the fire was burning over there in Notre Dame, the fire was also burning in the mosque that's on Temple Mount. That can't be a coincidence. And it's also on the Rebbe's birthday, which is like stunning. Okay, but so in this talk, the Rebbe then continues, and he says it's understood that in our days, mamish, we need to open up our eyes and see the reality, b'poil mamish, that we're sitting together with the Eibishter, Yisroel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kul Echad. We're sitting already at the table. L'sudas hanesuyin, and here he adds already, we're sitting already at our marriage ceremony. She didn't mention earlier. This is our wedding, because Moshiach is the ultimate completion of our marriage to God. So we're sitting at our chasana. We're sitting at the meal of the Leviyos and the Shayrabor and the Yayin HaMeshumar. And over here, the Eibishter tells David HaMelech, David Malka Mashiach, take the Koishel Bracha and bench. And he says, I should bench because Kois Yeshua is Esa, I lift up the cup of salvation of Hashem Hashem Ekra. As we're sitting there already, we can see the benching, which, by the way, parenthetically just, as I mentioned a few times, this year, the year 2019, in the Hebrew calendar, which is the year 5779, we're entering into the last 221 years of the 6th millennium in the Hebrew count, which is the amount of wine that fits into Mashiach's cup. It says, the Gemara asks, how much wine will Mashiach have in his cup? And the Gemara says 221 look. That's why the world is becoming so incredibly Moshiach, in my opinion. Okay, that doesn't say in the Sikha, but I'm saying the Rebbe is mentioning it here. And so on and so forth. He mentions it again and again and again. This idea, how the world is already, Geula is here already. It's just requiring, what's needed is that it should enter more into the material, physical world, and that's dependent on us being able to look Moshiachtig and see the subtleties of the Geula. And when we see them, the more we see them, the more materialized they will become in the reality of the world. So this needs some clarification. What does the Rebbe mean by these things? When he says, open up your eyes, and you can see already the Geula, you can see already that we're sitting at God's table. We're sitting already with Mashiach Tzidkenu. What does he mean we're sitting with the fish and we're sitting with the wine? What does the Rebbe mean by all these statements? I mean, it's easy just to say, okay, but the Rebbe wants us to see it. If we don't know what it means, how can we see it? So the Rebbe says, learn Chassidus, you'll be able to see it. And open your eyes. I've given you the eyes. So on a simple level, we can say, at that time, as I mentioned to you, the Rebbe kept on pointing that there are many things that are happening in the world that a person can look at them and see them just as current events that are happening. Another event that's happening, a war that's breaking out, this happening, a dispute, this, that, I mean, all kinds of things. Technology is suddenly taking on a whole, there's a burst of technology, the internet is invented, so and so and so. These are all things that we can look at and see them just as mundane realities in the mundane world. So the Rebbe is saying that you should realize that all these occurrences that are happening are all part of the process and part of the unfolding of the redemption. And that's what he means. Open your eyes and look at these things and you will see redemption unfolding. That could be, especially since, and that's not so easy, especially since we're being fed the entire time negativity. When you hear the news, there's so much negativity that's being spoken of, so much evil, bad that's constantly thrown. The commentators of the news try to constantly spin everything in a way or like to highlight negative things that happen. So we have to learn from the Rebbe, who taught us all the years how to see in what seems to be a dark world, the light that's really happening, focusing on the good things. We gave a class about 2 months ago where I was pointing out how poverty has declined, how life expectancy has shot up, meaning people are living much longer, how there's so much less illness in the world, how wars, the amount of people killed in wars are in such a decline, it's but we don't hear that. We always emphasize a terrorist attack over here, something over there. We don't realize that that crime and all this has gone down so much in terms of. But you have to look for this. So you have to, once you believe that it's a positive world, Moshiach is coming, then you train your eyes to look for the good. That can possibly be an explanation. Or for instance, I'll give another example. 2 weeks ago we had the shooting at Poway, and then you had this whole story with Rabbi Goldstein and his tremendous, unbelievable response, and he was invited to the White House, and he spoke on the White House lawn, and the president was standing over there, and he spoke about the moment of silence, which really means introducing God back into the public schools in America. So it looks like a nice story, an attempt by Jews to hopefully stop this madness of mass shootings, which sadly many people are taking and are thinking, God forbid, to harm Jews with. So we can look at these events just as another event of Golus. But last week I released a voice note, which I sent out, and I spoke about it this past Shabbos in Shul, and I sent it out on a voice note. I'm not going to repeat over here, but how this is like an unbelievable prophecy that is literally unfolding of biblical proportion. Because this is a meeting, as the way I described it, that Yaakov and Esav are meeting together again. That based on what we're learning over here, that Esav's end is that he's elevated. So the United States has been elevated. The current president, President Trump, is in many, many ways has the characteristics of Esav, but an Esav that is been refined and helping the Jewish people like no other president before, and that the fellow this Chabad shliach, his name is Yisroel, which is the name of Yaakov Avinu, and he goes and he meets him in the White House. So this is like Yaakov and Esav meeting again. And I described it and explained the Kabbalistic ramifications behind it, how it's stunning. If you read the whole spiritual story of Chassidus, and then you see what happened, you can mamish see an unfolding of a biblical prophecy. So I ask a little question. I myself was shocked that this came to me. When did it come to me? I was sitting over here in the morning and learning a discourse from the 5th Chabad Rebbe talking about the meeting of Yaakov and Esav. I was learning it. And as I'm reading about this, that suddenly, boom, it was hit by this like, wow. And everything suddenly clicked and was like unbelievable. I didn't waste any time, and within the next half an hour, before I fully processed, I released this voice note, and it spoke a lot to many people. So I'm asking the question, why did I see it? Why did I see it? I don't know why. And I think it's people, I shared it with people that are generally so not with the program that Moshiach is here and so on and so forth, but they were blown away by it. So I'm thinking to myself, why did I see it? There are people that learn much more Chassidus than me and know the subject of Yaakov and Esav much more than me. And why was I merited to see it? They didn't see it. I think the answer is a simple thing. There's one thing that I've been doing is that I'm convinced that Moshiach is coming now. Based on the learning and the study of Inyan Geula Mashiach, I am convinced Mashiach is in the middle of a process. The Rebbe told us already 30 years ago. And I'm convinced that it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger every day. So every single piece of Chassidus that I learn, I'm immediately looking around the world to see where is that happening. And that's why this occurred to me. But I'm thinking the Rebbe wants all Chassidim, everybody, to live that way. When you live that way, I mean, I'm very far from how to live already, Moshiach. I have a lot of work to do. I'm not talking about myself. I'm just using it as an example. That if you that what the Rebbe wants of us is every story, see it as a Moshiach, because it is Moshiach. Now, this could have gone unnoticed. Sadly, such a biblical event could have gone unnoticed. Another 2 weeks, it would be another story that happened in Chabad, a shooting, the guy went and he did this. Now, so many people in the world are looking at it and saying, hey, wow, this is incredible. This is an advance of Mashiach. Mashiach is really coming. Now, you imagine how many Mashiach things we missed? How many unbelievable things God is doing, miracles non-stop for the Jewish people, things that are just unbelievable. We're missing them. You know why we're missing them? Because I'm not learning enough Chassidus myself and looking enough, but the thousands of other Chassidim who are able to interpret all these things are not interpreting it, also because of a certain detachment. Because we look at what the Rebbe said 30 years ago, and we give a krechts and say, Halavai Mashiach should come. And I don't know what the Rebbe was saying. Instead of taking his words at face value. No, it really, really means what he said. He said, Geula is here, it's happening, open your eyes. If that's the case, then every Maimer Chasidus you learn has to be shown in the world. I'm sure, I have no doubt, that there's thousands of other events that happened around us that we totally missed. Their spiritual, godly, Moshiach significance. And our interpretations of them are so wrong, so off, because we're lacking what the Rebbe says over here. Open up your eyes. But we're not going to chas v'shalom kvetch about the negative. That's the opposite. That's galus. I am calling and saying that this is a tremendous zechus for all of us. There's a tremendous merit and a tremendous merit and a tremendous zechus for all of us that we're capable today's days of seeing the Geula already in everything. But the Rebbe says it requires learning Chasidus, because if you don't learn Chasidus, then you don't understand and appreciate. Like this whole concept that For example, I'll give you a very simple concept. If you take a look at the world today, you're seeing that one of the things that the miracles that are happening, that are so amazing, is that the Gentile world itself is assisting the redemption. If you go to a Jew in Williamsburg, a Jew in Flatbush, that didn't learn Hasidus, even if he's a very religious Jew, if he didn't learn Hasidus, he's still expecting Moshiach to come riding into town on a donkey, and that Moshiach is going to wave a wand, and he's going to smite all the wicked, and everybody, God forbid, is going to die, and the hail is going to come down. He's looking for a Moshe Rabbeinu kind of a redemption of 10 plagues, someone coming to a king and saying, let the Jewish people go, and if not. When you learn Hasidus, you realize that was then, because then you had to overpower the world to make a godly statement. You needed to suppress the world. You needed to subdue the world, because the world was not a vessel for the divine. The Pharaoh of the time was not a vessel to work with God. He needed to be broken by God in order for something godly to happen in the world. The Pharaoh in our time, the President of the United States, and I don't mean in any negativity calling him Pharaoh, I mean only the positive. I mean to say the leader of the free world, that leader today's days is not going to work. God doesn't have to break him to bring to get redemption happening in the world. Quite on the contrary, he himself is sublimated to the redemption. And he on his own will do things that we've not even asked him for the good of Israel. Like declaring the Golan Heights, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and countless other things again and again. So, but you don't see that. What I am saying sounds like Chinese. Like, what does that have to do with Mashiach? So therefore, because Donald Trump said so and so, because he freed Bashkin, that's Moshiach? Where's the white donkey? Where's the hail coming from the sky? Where's the frogs jumping out of the river? But you realize this is so much of a greater miracle. It's the world itself turning over. For that you need to learn Hasidus. You have to appreciate the concept that the Eibishter's truth is the truth of everything. You have to perceive the concept of Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad, and Hashem is the emes of everything, and that Torah mitzvahs is coming to remove the peels and the shells that obscure, uncover the innate godliness in the world, that the nations themselves should do tshuva, and they should be part of the redemption. And quite on the contrary, like I discussed when I discussed this whole meeting between Rabbi Goldstein and President Trump, is that the true energy of the redemption is by the Gentiles. It's not even by the Jewish people. They have the power. They have the intense lights of Toyu. These are, obviously, I'm making just note of ideas that you have no clue of unless you learn Hasidus. So how can you open your eyes for the redemption? So what does the Rebbe want over here? Number one, we ourselves should learn a lot more Hasidus. Number one. Secondly, we should teach Hasidus to all the Jewish people. Everybody needs to learn Hasidus. You can't, today's days, be with the program without learning Hasidus. And what Hasidus? You have to learn Chabad Hasidus. It's not enough to learn what's called Polish Hasidus, because then you still don't have the full understanding of things. They bypass the other Hasidus teachings, only teach tiny little points. They don't teach you the subject thoroughly. You have no other choice but to learn Chabad Hasidus, so you get to see the world from a far higher, godlier, inner place, and then the entire reality is then fully shaped and developed. Then you can appreciate what's happening in the world, but that's not enough. Because there are many, many Hasidim who learn a lot of Hasidus, but are still looking at the world as some old world. Because they have not accepted and studied and delved into the last year of the Rebbe's talks. The last year of the Rebbe's talk is where all the magic happens. Here is where he teaches you that whatever we learned in Hasidus for hundreds of years is now real in the material physical world. You have already, we're sitting at the table, we have the Geula here already. And sadly, big Hasidim, big thinkers are sadly not into it. That's the Nisayan. But you know what? Let's already get... We're holding so far in the process, it's time already for all of us to wake up. It's time for all of us to realize Geula is happening now. Then we can open our eyes and see it all manifesting. But I want to add one very beautiful Nakuda, one more point that perhaps means even more. When the Rebbe says open your eyes, it's not only that the events that are happening are Geula Diga events, and we should be able to interpret everything that happens in the world as something of Moshiach, but I think, there is another point of here. It's not my own chiddush. This is again from the book that I've been using in Yonai Shel Moshiach. I would like to thank him as well for a lot of the stuff, a lot of the fundamental principles that we've been teaching in the series. So in the very end of the book, he adds an insight. He says, if you take note, you see that all the things when the Rebbe said that Moshiach is here already, the Geula is here already, and that we can all we need is to open our eyes. The Rebbe always mentions these things. He says, we're sitting at the table with God. Yidden are sitting al shulchan avihem. Yidden are sitting at the table of their father. Number two, we are sitting already with Moshiach Tzidkenu. We are sitting already with. Thirdly, we have already the Sheir Haboyer, which is the meat. We have the fish, the Leviathan fish. And we have already Yayin Amishumar, we have the wine. So his observation is an interesting thing. The Rebbe doesn't say we have already Kibbutz Galuyos, we have all the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe doesn't say we have already the third Beis HaMikdash. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say we have already the resurrection of the dead. Doesn't say that. You know why? Because those things didn't happen. The Beis HaMikdash didn't happen yet. The resurrection didn't happen yet. The gathering of all the Jews to Israel didn't happen yet. What's the proof? This year is in Los Angeles, not in Eretz Yisrael. And we're not here all visiting LA. We're here, we're living here. So Kibbutz Galuyos didn't happen yet completely. So therefore the Rebbe wouldn't tell you, the Rebbe's not talking fantasy. He's not telling you make believe we're in Eretz Yisrael and we have a Beis HaMikdash. Why is he telling you make believe you have a Sheir Haboyer and Leviathan? The answer is everything the Rebbe mentioned are things that inherently exist already in the world from the very beginning, and they are current realities, but they are realities that are hidden. For example, the idea that we're sitting with God at the table, the Rebbe doesn't mean physically sitting at a table with Hashem. It means that a Jew is very close to Hashem. That's what it means. Golos, the time of exile, is called God, a people, children that were cast away from their father's table. That's exile. So what does Geula mean? Yidden are returning to their father's table. Hashem is not measured by physical space. Father's table doesn't necessarily mean being in Eretz Yisrael. Father's table means you are intimate with your father. Your father is available to you and accessible to you. During exile, Jews, there was actually a clog and a block between a Yid and the Eibishter. It wasn't easy to feel that Hashem is present in your life all the time. During the times of exile, Jews felt abandoned. And it wasn't that every second, or automatically, if you turn to the Eibishter, there always was a Yeshua that you can see it physically in your eyes. God, meaning even though during exile, the Eibishter exiles us, but really in truth, Hashem never really pushes us far. We're always together at our Father's table. The difference is that in exile, our experience is one of such that we are very far from Hashem. What's going to happen by the Geula? By the Geula is every Yid is going to feel that the Eibishter is so accessible and so near. Hashem is not a long distance call, Hashem is a local call. So the Rebbe is saying, since this idea is true, it's always been true. The only thing is that the exile, this darkness, this extreme black darkness was blocking us of knowing that. So we feel like we're a million miles away. The Rebbe says that darkness is gone already. Now you are close to Hashem. And therefore today's days, a Yid can talk to his daddy every moment and not only talk, but you see a response. Much more than if you decide to live close to him, he will be fully close more than ever in history. I meet Jews today, especially one guy in this community, I'm blown away. He decided that the Eibishter is his best friend and he's here for him all the time. And every time I meet him, he says, I had a business problem, I had a this. And instead of getting on the phone and getting all to the stress, I sat down on the side room and said to Hillel, spoke to Hashem. And you're not going to believe what happened. The last minute, this one called, and every day he tells me stories. And whenever I meet him, he's always, Rabbi Wolf, he's living with such emunah and such bitachon. I will say the same thing in my life lately. I used to have stress running the center. I have zero of it, even though there is no more natural cause for this center to be sustained. No more than 10 years ago or 9 years. No, but some reason the miracles are flowing nonstop. And whenever I need something, it's just, Hashem, help us out. And then it's there. I see the miracles happening. It's unbelievable. That means now we're living in a time that you could be at your father's table. When a prince is in the palace, anything he needs, he goes to his father. Can I have it? And his father gives it to him. The Rebbe is saying, today's days, you can be at your father's table. Another thing, the Rebbe says we're sitting with Moshiach. What does that mean? Well, in all generations, Moshiach was always with the Jewish people. We discussed this earlier, that there is a Moshiach in every generation. The leader of the generation, there's always one tzaddik who is the Moshiach. And if the Jews merited, Moshiach could come that second. Right? Moshiach could come that second. However, throughout the ages, people didn't know who that Moshiach is. That Moshiach was hidden. So the Rebbe is saying that element which was hidden till now, who the Moshiach is, now it's revealed. It's the first time in history that in all the Chabad, that the Nasi of the generation told the generation openly that he's also the Moshiach of the generation. So he's actually there and available and accessible. Thirdly, the Shoira Boyer and the Leviathan are also things that are not new things. The Leviathan was created, when the Eibishter created the world, God already created that big fish. He immediately killed one of them, and he salted it for the tzaddikim for the future. That means the Leviathan is also a reality that exists already. It's only that it was hidden. Now the Rebbe says, if you want, you can experience it. It's accessible. And the same is with the Yayin HaMeshumar. Yayin HaMeshumar means it's wine that's been guarded in the grape from the 6 days of creation. So it's always here. It's only that till now. It was hidden, now it's revealed. Practically, let me just give a quick practical explanation. What can it possibly mean the wine is accessible? What can it possibly mean that the Leviathan is accessible? So let's begin with the wine. The wine's accessibility means wine represents the secrets of the Torah, are the wine. When Moshiach will come, we'll drink that wine, means we'll have an unbelievable influx of secrets of Torah. Today's day, we can discover secrets like never before. First of all, we have all the books of Chassidus printed. You have the wine flowing. Secondly, when you study and you learn, even in your own mind, secrets can flow. Because the wine is pouring already. You can make associations, you can see things in a way that earlier generations couldn't. Which is so different than what you'll hear in the street. Most people will tell you that today's days, like the early days, you had great people, we were able to, whatever. Today's days, you're Nebuch. It's not true. We're able to uncover secrets like no other generation were able to, because the wine is accessible. What does the Leviathan mean? The word Leviathan comes from the word Levi, attachment. Leviathan means attachment. Today's days, if you daven and you say Tehillim, you can experience Dveikus and the Eibishter like no other generation ever before. You can literally feel your soul cleaving to God. You only have to decide that you're sitting down to a plate of fish. If you decide that you're sitting, as most people believe that today we're not possible for spiritual experiences. We wrote it off. So when we come to shul, we rather sit down and talk. Or if anything, just mumble the words, because can I truly experience Nishmas Kol Chai? Can I truly experience Ashrei Yoshei Beisecha? Can I experience Libi Upsari, that my heart will sing to Hashem? I can't. And the Rebbe is saying, yes, you can. The Leviathan is here already. This level of attachment to God, of being so cleaving and bonding them, is here. Did you give it a try? Well, it takes two things. You have to learn Chassidus, and it takes to realize that the Geula is here already. There's nothing holding you back from having the most intense, powerful, spiritual experiences of connection to the Eibishter. If you know for sure that you're capable of it, and you give it a little bit of work, You will be able to achieve attachment to the Eibush to what earlier generations had to work hours and hours. You can feel it. You can get to that connection very quickly because the Leviathan is really here. And this is what the Rebbe is saying. These particular things, these are all things that exist. They were just hidden. Earlier generations, because they were hidden, because there was a true blockage, you couldn't experience them. Today, there is no true blockage anymore. It's hidden only if we fail to pay attention to them. That's why it's hidden. But in essence, it's revealed. With this, we conclude our entire series, Moshiach Decoded. And as I mentioned to you, Be'ezus Hashem, we will start a new series, but this is the last concept and idea. And may Hashem help that by having taught all of this and learned this all together, and if these teachings can spread and be taught to all the Jewish people, everybody, and Be'ezus Hashem, we should already see the Geula Shalema, and may it be here, now, and now.